Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Weekender. Okay, some doozy announcements just to get out of the way. One is if you are a Cult of Games member, okay, yesterday, Andy from Heresy Miniatures put up our a discount code. Okay, so COG members this weekend, if you spend over a tenner, okay, you get an extra 10% off.
Oh,
but wait, he's already running the stuff at 20% off. So
that's nice.
It's like getting 30% off. Okay,
that's pretty cool.
If you haven't seen it, the reason this all transpired, okay, and I've got to be careful because it's fine showing some of this stuff off on the backstage show, but basically,
well, they can go check out Pointless Views.
I'm RPGing this weekend.
Yeah,
Justin was supposed to be RPGing this weekend.
Instead, I'm going to sunny Puerto del Carmen.
So I went and. Anybody that knows my character, my barbarian character, he has a particular talent that whenever he loses his temper, he doesn't only lose his temper. He loses the loincloth and everything, right? So I thought to myself, well, look, this is a special occasion. There's people flying in from England, Ireland, and whatever to do this event.
You mean a bit like Hulk Hogan, but lower down?
Yes, yeah. So the Hulkster goes like this here. The Warzone goes like this. Floppy glory. So anyway, he charges in. I picked it up from an old Carry On movie where the Scots Guards
carry on up the Khyber.
That's it. The Scots Guards would charge in, and it was the flappy bits that caused the most concertion.
Devils in skirts.
Devils in skirts.
That is really a movie of its time.
Yes,
and I love it.
So, I picked myself up a Boris, the big Boris the Barbarian. Okay,
big bald Boris the Barbarian.
Big bald Boris the Barbarian. So, the Boris the Barbarian is my new character because he is in skyclad mode. We would say he's in his full skyclad anger.
Yeah, he has variations.
Anyway, how all this transpired was I needed a character. I wanted to get the character for the weekend, and I was somebody in the COG, the Cult of Games Discord, said, oh, "Warren, I know exactly what you need, man. This is where you go." And I went to Heresy. I thought, of course, Heresy. And the Heresy miniatures are absolutely beautiful. If you have never seen them, take a moment, pause this, and go and check out the Heresy miniatures because they are absolutely gorgeous. And I placed an order, and I put a cheeky note in with the order saying, "Andy, apologies, mate. I'd went for next day shipping and stuff like that. I said, apologies, mate, for the pressure, but I really need this to wind Justin up this weekend." And I got and then I put another cheeky message in it and said, "And if you feel like painting it, feel free." Did
it arrive painted?
So Andy emailed me back and said, chuckling, and said, "No, my days of painting are over. But them old contrast paints will do this boy proud. Yeah. And you'll need a couple of pots for this boy." So we had a bit of banter back and forth, and I said to Andy, "Look, the stuff's wonderful. It's been too long since we had a look at it. Would you like to do could I get you to do a code for our Cult of Games members?" So we have a code, and that's why the code is what it says it is whenever you see it.
Oh, I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for this one then.
No, it's nothing weird or anything like that. But look, you're getting 30% off some beautiful minis. You're helping a wonderful craftsman.
Yep, and a long-time member of the community.
And a very long time, 18 odd years he's been in this old game. So it's
to clarify, it's a discount for what, 10%? But he's already doing a 20%.
So he's already got 20% off.
Yeah.
This, if you spend over a tenner, is getting you an extra 10% off. So it's I'm very tempted now. If I can swing it past the wife, I'm going to try and get the other Boris. So I have
the
non-skyclad Boris, because there are some beautiful sculpts.
So you can transform.
Yeah, yes. But Boris is Heresy Miniatures sort of character signature model. So he's had 3 different versions of just regular Boris since he started.
Actually, why don't we do this?
I'll just go to Heresy.
Yeah, we're bringing up Heresy models. We're going to have a look at it now. But do not click on the one that I've ordered already.
I know. Now I think. All right, so I'm on the main Boris page.
This is Big Boris, and Big Boris started I want to say that one is the original.
The Mark 1?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Alright.
Yeah, that is the original.
So I'll open
somewhere.
that up for you so you can get a closer look once it loads here.
But over the years,
bring him up.
As Andy's got better, because Andy was a, I want to say Andy was a manager in workshop.
Was he there when you were there?
He wasn't a sculptor, but he was interested in sculpting and used to get tips off the guys round Lenton. And then he went into business for himself. And as he's got better at sculpting, he's gone back and done a new version of Boris,
Right, so slow down now. Now scroll down. You're okay to keep scrolling.
Yeah. So that one was actually done by Kev White.
Yes.
So that was done as a
tribute.
As a tribute to
As
him.
a tribute. Now keep going.
But Super Dynamic is particularly nice.
I think, so see that one there, Super Dynamic Boris?
Super Dynamic
Berserk Boris?
Okay.
I think that will be the other one that I order.
That's really nice.
Yeah. And he doesn't just do fantasy, although he does some gorgeous fantasy. The Blights, which people may, if you've seen Constantine,
yes,
there was weird demons when they actually look into hell and they've got like half a head. Their head just stops just above the brow of the nose, so they've got no top half, and it's just like a scooped out holiday.
Is this one of the sci-fi ones? Or
No, it's fantasy. Don't know if it's listed.
Go to the fantasy range, John.
I'm way ahead of you. This is why Ben's back up.
They look like Plagueberry type things, but with only half a head. They're particularly creepy.
A bit like the new Terminator.
Click on the dragon.
Scooped out
dragon.
Oh, there they are. There, yeah, it's that. See that?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, wait. Click on the dragon first, and then we'll come back to the demons.
Okay.
Or click on the demons.
No, I've opened the demons in a new tab, so it's loaded by the time we do it. So he's got 3 dragons.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have to. The dragons were Kickstarter only because they were so ridiculously big.
Look at that.
And when I say ridiculously big,
I remember
ridiculously big.
I remember us talking about the Heresy Dragon some years ago. It was a massive dragon.
Well, they close this little.
Go and check out the demons.
That big. Wait, just before you go, that image there, Justin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see if this works. No, it doesn't work.
Wow.
All right. Okay.
I was trying. I failed. All right, demons then, Jerry.
Demon Lords.
Yeah, it's the Blights.
Yeah. Sorry, Jerry. I'm just getting
you are getting distracted.
Yeah.
But he doesn't just do fantasy. He also does sci-fi. I mean, if anybody's a fan of Firefly, there's a very Captain Reynolds like space pirate, rocking the 2 pistols.
Ooh, quite like the look of this one.
Azoth. Yeah.
That's very nice.
That was the first model I seen in his range many moons ago, which is why I started delving down the heresy madness.
This is exactly what I'm after. Well, one of the things, the 40k weekend, I started a demon army. Now, I like generic fantasy armies, okay? I just have a thing for that. So my demon army is always planned to be a fantasy, like Iron Maiden demon army. This is exactly the range to get the heroes from.
Oh yeah. I'm digging it.
Right. Anyway,
and then so there was one you were wanting to show.
Show
the
me my
blights.
I want to see my headless nutbags.
So
any of them really.
This one should do the job.
So so some have heads, but a lot of them don't. It's just like a hollowed out top of the skull. It's just very reminiscent of that Constantine nuttery.
Lovely,
lovely.
Well, horrifyingly lovely.
So if you fancy supporting the show and supporting Heresy and saving a ton of cash all over the way, that's one way to do it. Sign up to the Cult of Games. In there, you'll see if you come across to OnTableTop.com, you'll see the Friday deal, and that'll be your extra 10% off the Heresy stuff. And a big thank you to Andy for being so quick in getting me Boris over to me. So we will definitely.
I'm guessing he picked the fast pigeon.
He did. In other 2 quick bits of news, if you've never been to the store.ontabletop.com, we have finally got the beginnings of our D&D department set up.
Yes.
So we're starting to bring in the Dungeons and Dragons stuff there, and we have a few new cool, unique hobby products that are coming on the way that we're going to be doing some video work on to show you just some cool shortcuts that you can take. So stay tuned for that. And then the big news.
Big news.
Monday, 25th of November.
So not this Monday coming.
The one that is 25th of November.
Yep.
Okay. we are doing Firelock Games Week on OnTableTop.
Yes. And it's specifically Firelock Games because we're covering all of their games. So we're doing Blood and Plunder, Blood and Valor, and my favorite, which is Oak and Iron. And I almost flipped off the camera. Apologies.
Almost.
You almost slipped off the camera?
Flipped off the camera.
Oh, right, okay.
I almost gave it the bird.
Oh, yeah. So we have a week-long celebration to Firelock, because Justin loves Oak and Iron.
Yeah.
Cartman loves Blood and Plunder. We all love Blood and Plunder. Did you know that that Blood and Plunder was all the way through that last episode of South Park that has just aired?
Yep. Apparently, the guys that make South Park are huge gamers and they're fans of Blood and Plunder. Whenever Mike and the guys were over here, the South Park guys actually drew their entire team as South Park characters, and he showed it to me. It was awesome.
Well, here's the thing, those South Park dudes, they have taste.
Yeah.
So it's it's hard to argue with that, guys. So
and I'm looking forward to it because
if you've ever fancied having a look at the Firelock stuff, please pencil in to spend the week with us starting Monday, the 25th.
Yep.
The 25th.
The 25th.
Yeah, to have some crack as we have a joyous week with the guys from Firelock and it's just the beginning because we've got some great plans with the Firelock guys that we're hoping to roll out next year. Some really cool and interesting stuff. Jerry?
Yes?
We are halfway through. We've reached the halfway mark on the D-Day Global campaign.
We have. And it's tight. It's as tight as a tight thing. That's very tight. I sat down.
4 aside, isn't it? Or,
no.
The Allies are
5-4.
Week one, the Allies crushed everywhere.
Oh,
but they only crushed by a couple of points. So even though they took all 3 of the routes, they were literally, it was like 81 against 83 or 67 against 60. The win ratio between Axis and Allies is very, very tight. And there's an awful lot of overall commanders. I think there's All-American from Iceland on the Allies side and Guderian on the Axis side, who have been sort of steering where results should be going depending on how things are turning out. But it's nice to see this. I think a few of them were finally balanced on the last day of week 2, and they've just managed to get some Axis wins in there, which will be interesting when it pushes when they push into week 3. So it's not all been ally, oi, oi, oi. So yeah, I'm quite excited because I really, really was looking forward to the German pushback.
Yeah,
it's been grating on me. The Allies.
It does look like the Germans are holding really hard on these three now.
The Germans all start in control, so every time the Allies arrive, they're having to push the Germans off.
Grinding in.
Yeah,
I see. But yeah, you can see how close some of these were.
That's why if you go up to the top
if you go
map,
up to the locked ones,
you go on. That's why you can see like on the top of the route, the furthest point is controlled.
That's all German.
Oh, they've managed to hold. Yeah. On the blue line.
They hold Cherbourg, which despite my loss, although I still blame that on me giving my Americans that I painted on my dice to Chris from Battlefront to play against me while I played with your Germans. So really, and he was 1 point over as well. So really, they should have scrubbed that. Can we go back and just take a chunk off them? No, for terrible cheating. No, not happening. All right.
It's if you fancy getting involved, you absolutely can. So head over to dday.warconsole.com and you can log in your battle reports. Also, we have an ongoing deal that we've been doing to try and help communities out in the sticks, wherever you may be, start your own little local campaigns. So there is a product code. If you come over to beastof.war.com, on tabletop.com, go into this post. We have a code in there, and if you use that code whenever you buy just one copy of Hit the Beach, we bundle in a hobby league, a full 10-player hobby league kit for free, and the campaign kit, so that you can start a hobby league where you are, get people gradually building up into the game, and you have a campaign kit that you can run a D-Day campaign at any time in your local community. So it's there to try and help local communities. It would make a great gift for a local school or a local
even
youth
a local club.
Local youth club, local schools. So if you want to try and help people get into a little bit of gaming, get into a little bit of history, and have a nice structured way to do it, This is something that we're committing to try and make it as easy for wherever you may be to try and get a really good starting point to be able to do that. Sweet to the beat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. We had guests in this week.
Yes. We have Valdemar from Phalanx in with us to talk about Race to Moscow, so their new game.
Now, people will know Phalanx from
U-Boot.
U-Boot. An incredible game.
Yes.
I think we have a Let's Play of it as well. If we can make sure we link that Let's Play into the show notes, guys. Yeah. Because it's a really intensive game.
Yeah, well, it's really intensive. It's really good, but this new one is really good as well. So it's focusing on Operation Barbarossa. So myself and Jerry get to sit down and actually have a chat about the concepts behind this game. So we'll take a second. We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. I am joined by Valdemar from Phalanx Games to have a chat about the latest game that they are bringing to everybody, Race to Moscow. I'm also joined by the magnificent Jerry, and we're going to have a little bit of a look at this game. So, Valdemar.
Hello, yeah.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Welcome. It was a pleasure to come here again.
Mm-hmm. So, what is this game?
Well, this game is a logistic challenge to try to get all the armies to Moscow before the winter comes.
Yeah, so if we have a look at the map here, the gaming board, we can see we have the three different army groups that were invading Russia during World War II.
Yeah, it was the largest campaign fought so far in the world history.
Mm-hmm. And each player, so it starts off, you can play 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, or a 4th player who's sort of a half step into it.
Yeah, it's called a half player, just to intrigue anyone, because this is the player responsible for playing the Soviets, which is a different gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of the key features, we've played this game off camera, and one of the key features I love about it is the resource management that you guys have built into it, because it's not just, you have a certain number of resources every turn. You actually have to manage the logistics of moving the resources from the back of your lines to the front, which I find really intriguing.
Yeah, this is a logistic game because fighting is easy. You just have to spend munitions or fuel as the card says you, because the enemy units are on the cards, they are not on the board. But the real challenge is that when you run out of anything, then you have to build a line of communications and trying to bring everything as smoothly and as efficient as you can.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other key things is that I noticed during the game is, so if we look at the green tokens on here, these also count as a bit of a timer for you, because if there's none of these to place on the board, the Soviets are completely dug in and they are just perfectly set to repel the Germans.
Yeah, this is the way the history is repeated again and again, because the standard course of the game means that you cannot conquer Moscow.
Yeah.
This is what happened in our game, It was just one area too far, and this is kind of an adventure game, because every time you are advancing, you have to pick some army to see your encounter is. If it's not covered with these green markers, it can be something good.
Yeah.
But green markers, it can be bad or worse.
Or super bad.
Super bad. Yes, we have there, not so bad card, but the other card, if you can show, is the first Mech Corps.
Yeah, I'll give these to Jerry. I think we have a camera set up for that.
14th Mech Corps, which will eat up a fairly substantial chunk of your resources there. So fuel and 2 munitions, although you will get an Iron Cross out of that one, as is only right and proper. However, if you run into the first Mechanized Corps, that's all your ammunition and fuel to deal with those. So
this is super bad. Yeah, this is super bad.
Yeah, and each of your forces can only carry a certain amount of material.
6, yeah. So definitely, after, even if you win such a combat, you are completely exhausted, and your rear forces, your trucks, your trains, you need to take the supply from your main base, if there is any.
Yeah, well, it's the other thing as well, because every round we're getting 2 actions, and basically your options are you can keep fighting until you're out of gas, but then you need to take the time to actually husband it along, because all of your resources start from this side of the board over here, and then you need to start laying out your train tracks to bring it via train, which is pretty efficient, or using these lovely little trucks.
Well, I think the first thing is everybody, unless you're playing the 3.5 version, everybody's playing an army group, a German army group. So you are competing, shall we say, for
who's the best general?
Who's the best general? Who wants to get the field marshal's baton in their knapsack? Who is going to reach the goal of Moscow for the fatherland? But because of that, when you're doing things in the game, when you're pulling additional transportation, so you can pull in extra trains to help funnel your resources to the front. You can pull in resources from it's a communal pool. So as people spend them, they go into the pool, and then as they're resupplied, they come from here. So if there's not much fuel in there, and it comes to my turn, and I take all of the fuel, that stops your Panzer Army or your Panzer Army. So, and just like the actual German military, there was the constant fighting between the various sections of trying to get the resources they need and make the case to the overall, to OKH, so the overall commander. We need these at Army Group North, we need these at Army Group Centre. Getting those resources quicker will help you get forward, but will almost undoubtedly stymie the other two fronts. And it's a really interesting interplay then, because even though the end goal is the same, it is a competitive game where it's not that once one person has taken Moscow, you've won, they've won, and the other two players have lost. They are the losers. You are the worst generals.
It's not cooperative game.
No, it's not. It's very, very competitive, and finding those points where you can log jam on the map. So there are train tracks, not literal train tracks for the trains, but there are train tracks for your armies. So North can only move into the areas that are either blue or blue-white. So, for example,
so they're designated operations area.
Yeah. So,
yes, exactly.
And the fact that I moved in there would therefore impede the units coming in behind from Army Group North, even though Army Group Centre. So the eyes on the prize is key in this game. It is that tactical decision of, can I keep my own units supplied? But at the same time, if somebody starts racing ahead of you from another army group, then you can find yourself hemmed in and have to backtrack to actually progress. And that's burning resources as well. If my panzer divisions have to turn around and go back the way they came before they can go forward on another route, that's petrol I couldn't afford to use.
Yes, you have limited sources of petrol.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's not just everybody heading for Moscow. You've actually got, each one of them has their own sort of win location. So we've got Leningrad in the north, Moscow in the middle, and Rostov here in the south.
Yeah, but Moscow is available for everyone.
Yeah.
The north can also head for Moscow, just as I did. Yeah. And the south can choose also between Rostov and Moscow. Only the center can only focus on Moscow. Yeah, but if another player also wants to go Moscow, then it's a race. Yeah, it's a race.
Yeah, and then you actually get that interlinked support from the people who are maybe going to Moscow with you, because our units do work together even if it is competitive. So we do have to worry about how far we're extending our lines, and are we going to get cut off from our main group and actually knocked back again.
Well, this is the benefit, because we all know, just playing south and north, that the center has to go to Moscow, because anyway, it's the only objective. So we can just try to stick to him and try to, let's say, I secure your flanks, but you also secure mine. Because there is also the mechanism of counterattacks. So you cannot be sure that your markers are on the board forever. If you are not protecting this with your armies, then it will be destroyed.
And that's the other lovely balance, is just how far ahead can you push with your forces? Because whenever the game is initially laid out, there is just a massed line of Russian forces in front of you that you have to break through, clear out to actually set up your game timer. And then they all start appearing from the back edge of the board, slowly moving forward. And then you don't have that engagement. As you're moving up to meet them, you're losing time as they have time to embed themselves.
Exactly. And this is the way it works, because each time you are not making a progress, each time it was definitely our last turn, yes, or the turn before.
Yeah.
Because you always have to count how many markers are there, how many turns are there, because you can plan a nice reshuffle of supplies, but it will may turn out that the very last action will be not available because the game will end sooner than this.
The thing that intrigues me about the game itself is, even though everybody is competing against the other German generals, they're also competing against the game mechanics. So they're competing against Russia as a whole, and each army group has an opposing AI general, for want of a better word. So, for example, there's Fyodor Kuznetsov,
yes.
But these cards are all doubled. So on this side, it shows you what happens if you actually have to fight him. So at the end of your turn for Army Group North, he would start by counterattacking if possible. If not, he'll protect an objective city. And if he can't do that, then the Victory City protection near Leningrad will kick in. However, each of these cards is double-sided with a more imposing general on the back, and they have better abilities. And likewise, I think for myself, against middle, I had Pavlov, but the alternative, if I was playing as a more experienced player, would be Zhukov, and I really didn't want to ever see Zhukov out there. But even though it's a multiplayer game, you can tailor the opponent to the actual player's ability. So if they're only playing for the first time, if you're a group of 3 players playing for the first time, you can have this easier, and they're not easier, but theoretically simpler fighters against you. If one person is more ground into the game and they know what they're doing, then they can flip over to that experience side and have a better tactical
They can
game.
play hard mode.
Yeah. And the fact
because,
that you can flip back and forth, so 2 people could be on hard and 1 person could be on easy,
Exactly,
or all 3 of you.
Yes.
So you can really tailor the game to your players, which I just think is amazing.
Great idea.
And of course, even if you are playing solitaire, because then you can also choose the easy side or the hardest side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and after you've been playing for a long time, you're maybe very comfortable fighting in the north, but the other 2 you're not so good on. So you could maybe level up the difficulty in the north and keep the other 2 a little easier for you as you learn some of the tricks and tactics for moving through that landscape.
And to learn the map, because you also need to know which cities are important and why they are important, and what connections are efficient and which are not. Yeah, because, they generally, we have the locomotive on the box. Yeah, because the most important thing in this game is how will you plan your rail network.
Yeah.
As we can see, Jerry planned it's straightforward to Moscow. Yeah. So he was advancing in one direction.
Yeah,
and Justin was building.
I was kind of, don't worry, we're going down along the south of the port here. I kind of want to take Odessa, and then I'm just gonna have my trucks just drive forward with everybody else. It's fine.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, the most efficient way is to move via the railroad. But like you can see here, there's a massive train of trains bringing the supplies forward. But this, even though it was the most efficient way, wasn't the best tactically for me, because once you've got that route blocked by trains or blocked by trucks, then they stay there until the game resets.
These are traffic markers, actually.
Yeah, they're impediments to further progress. So even though late in the game I had supplies, I had Panzer Army right at the door.
You just captured Vyazma, as they did historically.
The fact that these 2 trains were sitting in the middle meant I could bring stuff forward here, but then I would have had to transship it onto trucks to bring it round that impediment, which all of a sudden stopped me dead. So I couldn't get the supplies forward to get to the army group to progress into Moscow. So efficiency works to a certain extent, but you have to plan and look for those speed bumps that are going to hit you. And the middle army group center is really restricted in where they can go. They have a very direct route to Moscow, but it's a very narrow route, and you can find yourself blocked in very quickly by it, which is just fascinating.
Well, it's narrow because you let me capture Veliki Luki and Vilnius before, because and you were advancing before me, because it's the group which has 2 armored armies.
Yeah.
So it's up to you whether you want to go to the wider or more narrow.
Yeah.
Then you also have
Front.
on the borders between the north and south those dual colored locations that can really crush army groups center into the center even more if they're not careful, and then just really just stymie the transport routes that they have.
Here's the thing.
But as on the other hand, the army group south has, let's say, half of the board for their disposal.
I did find playing this. I did find it was really slow just to make sure take and hold the ground, grind forward.
Yeah, because you are using the World War I tactics.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a very wide front.
Yeah,
Yes,
just keep the line. No, it's not how the Blitzkrieg works. You just take your panzer, go straight forward, and let the infantry do the job.
So here's a question. The three army groups are similar, but different. So army group south is mostly infantry with one panzer army.
Yeah, exactly.
Center is 2 panzer, 2 infantry, and you have a fleet, 2 infantry,
Yes,
and a panzer.
everyone has, let's say, 4 units.
Yeah.
But they are different, because it's historical.
Yeah.
It's nothing. So, and each of the groups, because let's say that you have not one game, you have 3 games, because each of the player
Wants to play in a different area.
it's complete different experience. So you can play the game shifting, and it's I was playing north, and I was keeping my fleet in reserve.
Yeah,
So
they were reserved for a long, long time there.
Yeah, but it was finally my decision whether do I want to prolong the game for one more turn or not. Yeah, but checking that I'm winning, it was obvious not. Yeah, but it was my asset. It wasn't automatic. The army group center has the advantage of having 2 armor groups.
Yeah.
And this
the
is
armor
also
groups are a lot faster.
Yeah, they're a lot faster, but they consume much more fuel.
Yeah.
Than any other player, and just being limited to having just 2 actions per turn, and having 3, let's say, and needing always 3 activations to move all your units. This is a headache. Yeah,
it can be.
Certainly, I mean, I abandoned. A panzer army.
One was
they
did the job very efficiently,
did the job, and they ran out of fuel, and I just went, I can't afford to resupply them. So for the rest of the game, I progressed with 1 panzer group and 2 infantry.
Well, during my gameplay, I found that I had my panzer group ready and fueled and ready to rock and roll, but I didn't want to advance them because I couldn't get the resources to the infantry to actually keep them fed and ready just to move forward and actually support.
I mean, you faced with the difficulties of the Eastern Front. It's just a few hundred kilometers, because let's say one connection is about 100 kilometers, so you don't have enough troops to secure the front.
The entirety of it, yeah.
So there are always the gaps. So it was. The trick is that you cannot cover everything. You have to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very, very interesting game. Now, important question: how are you guys bringing this game to market?
It's we are doing the Kickstarter campaign, which will start on 18th of November.
Okay, awesome. And so I assume this is the core set we're playing with. Are there many expansions that we're going to be looking for during it?
Actually, what we want to do as a stretch goals, I mean, this is the prototype, which says already including the stretch goals, because what we want to start with is, let's say, the minimum which is necessary. I mean, and then we'll be unlocking, let's say, the new shapes of the tanks. Yeah, because basically what you need is just the 2. I mean, just the Panzer 38 and Panzer 2, but Panzer 3 and Panzer 4, there are extra forms, so they'll be upgraded as well as the air support units.
Oh yeah, Jerry, show some of the aircraft, because they are lovely models.
And they will be just a separate expansion available for the backers, because for the retail edition there will be cardboard.
I see. So basically, whenever people are just jumping into this on the bare bones, they get everything they need to play in the box.
Yes,
but all of your stretch goals are those sort of quality of life upgrades that you can give to people.
Yes, this is our strategy for, let's say, all our Kickstarter campaigns, so that there is not much difference between the retail version, the Kickstarter version, but what we want to do for our Kickstarter lovely backers is to give them some extra stuff for free, and let's say it will be available for retail, but for the extra cost. And I would pay any money for just nice planes myself.
Well, and it's nice that when you're picking up the copy of the game, it's the fully playable game. You're not having to rely on a stretch goal to make the game play to its entirety.
Yeah.
But having the additional options there, so having the little trains themselves are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain Lloyd will want to
Yeah,
lay his
I'm
hands
surprised he hasn't dive bombed into the studio already.
on. Oh, I've sent him pictures, don't worry. But yeah, so the fact that you can play this and you can play it, it's a counter-based game essentially, but having things like the fuel tanks and having the ammo dumps and having the planes and the various styles of armor available is just a really neat little touch. Another neat touch that I noticed when we were playing was when you attack an area, if there is an opposing army, you'll take from the Race to Moscow pile, and if it's an empty area, you take from one of your own piles, and these are all set for the specific army group, center, north, or south, and these are all original World War II photographs.
Yes.
So
most of them colorized by us.
Yeah, which I just absolutely love to bits, because there's so many different ways you could have done this, and they could have been just
that's
text.
a great picture of Churchill.
Yeah, he's not carrying the Tommy gun, but he can't have everything. He doesn't always carry one.
Yeah, it was the one picture because the card says that he declares war. Yeah. So this is the war way, the Churchill.
Definitely.
And these, I think, for a sad man like myself, these original photographs, and they're not the same. I mean, there's certain cards that are replicated throughout decks, but the images themselves are fairly different throughout each of the decks, and it just gives this really interesting historic perspective on what was going on, because sometimes you had something and it will just be Japan has declared war or Japan has invaded wherever it happens to be.
Because we wanted to cover all, let's say, that there are the news coming to the troops. Okay, for example, as Justin, it was advancing, and at the moment, Ark-Royal was sunk. So our Kriegsmarine is also fighting, or maybe our, let's say, allies, Japanese, are entering into China, or maybe the allies have signed the Atlantic Charter.
Yeah. In fact, there's the Ark-Royal one. It's a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
You mean the torpedo shot?
Both, I think, is the answer to that one.
Yes, let's go with both.
But that just is a lovely touch. Are things like this set? So are the card decks themselves going to be set for the game, or would there be a possibility of expanding beyond those when you actually hit Kickstarter, or is it just going to be one self-contained system?
We're not trying to expand the cards. What will be make available options is, let's say, this available of the fourth player, because it requires some changes in the components, the minor ones, but still, because what we want to make the funding goal is the real funding goal. What's the minimum amount that we actually need
to actually get this in people's hands?
To get the game, and then we will be just making the benefit for, let's say, everyone. Then we can pop it up.
If you reach that.
Yeah, although I tell you what, I would, and I always do this, I always look at games and go, how far could this go? I would love to see this game.
But Moscow is the answer. That's how far we could go.
Actually, no, what I'm thinking is this game has the potential to spawn, successors where it's the race to Berlin. So you start in Normandy and it's you battling your way through France into Germany, trying to get there before the Russians get in. Things like that. I would love to see this system applied to that.
Well, the first game in the system was Race to the Rhine. So we're starting in Paris and trying to get to the West Wall, but now people I'm just thinking, just maybe we should try to
change the front.
Well, it's changing the front. We have a conversation with our Russian partner, and he told, for the, let's say, obvious reasons, they are not interested in publishing this game in Russia, but they are waiting for the sequel, and they are changing direction. They want us to make Race to Warsaw. So we're changing the way, but the obvious expansion for this game, but let's say we want to bring this game after Kickstarter as soon as possible, and we don't want to make the campaign with tons of expansions that will we are going to be fulfilling for the next 5 years. We believe that people like it, then adding the expansion, like for example, Rise to Stalingrad, with let's say it will be about 2 players. Yeah, it's just another set of the board. Yes, Stalingrad is somewhere there, or whatever else. Yes, a nice idea. Just then you can play just, let's say, Rise to Warsaw and Rise to the Rhine simultaneously, and with the group of players, seeing who will be
Well, I mean,
the winner. But
with your map design, it's very easy that your next expansion would just link on to this one, and you could have someone playing Russians working their way in from Russia, someone playing the British and Americans pushing their way in from Normandy. Oops, if I don't send everything flying on the table.
It's doable. I mean, just
could be very cool. I'm excited.
The system is very smooth, very working, and there are also some, let's say, in design options, let's say for the North Africa.
Oh, that could be good.
Yeah, so just for 2 players, I have to figure out how to make it fog of war. Yeah, because they were bouncing between let's say Tobruk and Alexandria, and they were going one way to another, and the supply was always the key there, because once the party was closer to the supply base, it was very fierce fighting, and the other party was having the line extended up to the maximum, so it was going one and second direction. And actually the another game, a little bit more difficult for the design, but it will be the Race to Tokyo, the Pacific War, when it's no trains, the ships, and all this happens because just the changer is that try to focus on logistics. I mean, just the tactics. Well, there are so many games about tactics. You don't want to make another one.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question then, because we've only sort of briefly skirted around it. Generally, you're being attacked by an AI playing the Russians. So whatever you do is a set of priorities, counterattacking. But you said there's a 3.5 version. So how would that work, or how does that change things?
Because then the decision of where to place the next Soviet marker is by the player. Then you just make the 2 separate decks of cards. One is for the infantry units, and the other is for the mech units.
Yeah. So the Race to Moscow cards, these ones.
Yeah, these cards. Yeah. So, and then we will have to make just the change for the counters because.
So some are infantry, some are vehicle.
Yeah, it's because it will require making them double-sided, and then even from the setup, the Soviet player decides which areas will be defended by the tanks. I mean, just the very bad and extremely bad units, and which areas do you want to defend with your infantry. So then you are trying to outguess what will be the objectives of the Axis players.
Yeah, what route are they going to go for?
Yes, but just these markers cannot be moved. So if you put it in the wrong place, and unless somebody envelopes you, they are stuck. So you might be the one that you are putting your tanks in the wrong direction, and somebody, because for now it's kind of random, but you can recon, you can use your air support, but at this moment there is a trick where to put my defense. And then such events like partisans also is not decision of players, it's decision of the Soviet player where to blow up the
so
train network.
Train networks and that sort of thing.
Where is your most required supply needing to be coming through? That could be good.
So it's very interesting that the Soviet player.
Well, you can also play with the Soviet player one-on-one, but it's not that fun as playing 3 versus 1.
3 versus 1, or even if the Soviet player is teaching a new group how to play. So they're there to answer questions, but they've already set up and they know what they're going to be.
Yeah, this is what I was doing when I was teaching, let's say, some members of our staff this game. So also testing this variant. Okay, so I'm the most experienced guy, as designer, for this game. So
I hope so.
I will play the Soviets. It was quite fun. Because they can only advance to the half of the board.
Yeah, so it's definitely if the Soviet player isn't as taxing initially as once the deployment's done, their work is about 80% done, and then afterwards it's just where the reinforcements go into.
Yeah.
That's why we call it half of
Yeah,
player.
that's it, yeah.
Because it's, let's say, half of an engagement, because you don't have to care about
Yeah,
all
you
the
don't have to worry
logistic
about
stuff.
that. Yeah, you can just sit back and watch the German forces bounce off.
Yes, and
depth,
you are very happy if they
Yeah.
are moving their supplies up and down. And okay, let's place.
Oh,
Okay.
whoops, you went into Kursk. Guess what? There's KV1.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I hope not.
I also have to say it's a very, very quick game to learn. It didn't take us very long to actually just be picking it up, running with it, and then between you and me, Jerry, we were just running away, making our own tactical decisions without any help from yourself, which I quite like.
Yeah, this is the goal, just to create the games which can be easy to learn and hard to master.
That's always the key, really. And whenever you've got people sitting there going, at what point do I just leave somebody sitting behind, is always a good thing, because the logistics isn't so much how I'm going to defeat my opponent. It's, can I keep defeating my opponent, or do I run out of steam? Do I get so overextended that I leave myself open to counterattacks, or just high and dry, just no fuel in the tank, no bullets in the gun, and
especially no food, because
and no food.
Yeah, because when there is a reset, that's why you have the halt markers here. Yeah, because these units were not supplied with cookies.
No rations.
Yeah.
No schnitzel.
Sadly
lacking in the cookies.
So they have to go to the country and feed themselves, so they are not operational.
I mean, like, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made during the gameplay was down here at Pripyat. Is it?
Piatra, yes.
Piatra, yeah. So this acts as a smaller supply depot than my main supply depot.
Exactly.
So I was only getting half the amount of supplies every time I was taking supplies out of here, but it's so much closer to this southern tip that it was just too tempting to pass up.
Well, these are the choices the players have to make.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it sounds like this is going to be a really, really exciting one for everybody at home. Anything else you'd like to tell everybody?
I have my fingers crossed, because just this design is 5-year-old. It was developed, tested, and also tried to put it as, let's say, the concept of the board is. One thing we haven't told yet. I mean, just the weather zones. Yeah. There are not direct rules regarding these weather zones, but they fit the game. Yeah. Because we start with this nice summer.
Yep. Start our campaign here.
Then we will go to this autumn, fall. Then we'll go into the mud section. And then entering mud section is actually 3 areas away, so everybody who is there is quite close to win. And finally, there is the winter section.
Yeah.
And it's really hard.
That's where General Winter stops all the armies.
Yes, so you're fragile. So also it's also the key for learning the map. Yes, because if you should know that if you are entering the mud or the winter section, you'd better be prepared.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing I'll say. I would love to visit Russia, not in the winter.
Unless you are prepared and well equipped.
It's me. I'm never going to be prepared for Russia in the winter. Not going to happen, folks. All right, well, if that's everything, everybody, I tell you what, make sure and keep an eye out for this one on Kickstarter. It is a fabulous, fabulous game. Definitely one to give a go. We will move on. Get your comments down below. Tell us what you think of this part of the war and what you think of the idea of playing a logistical war game on the tabletop. We'll move on. We'll see you shortly.
Nice. Eastern Front, then.
Yeah, I love the idea of this game, that it's less about the actual combat and fighting and more about the resourcing of your forces to keep them up to speed.
I like it, the logistics, because if you can't keep your logistics up, that's you've done.
Yeah, you can't. You can be delayed in a combat, but you can't lose. You're not losing an army at any stage. So you never have to worry about overextending and your army being destroyed.
Yeah.
What you have to worry about is overextending and then that army just sitting there forever.
Unsupplied.
And once they get unsupplied, they stop moving. And that's it.
And we train.
Trains, so many trains. I may have sent a loaded picture of the trains.
It's interesting, because it's something I've been thinking about in war games recently, in tabletop war games. And so I'm going to throw this out there as a discussion point for the community, okay? And if you disagree with me, I'm just going to shout you down. But I had been thinking about war games recently, and I had thought about. I was watching some dude on YouTube talking about war and about strategic, tactical, and operational.
Yeah.
Jeez, there isn't very many of them on YouTube, is there?
No, there's not. But this was one anyway. And I had thought about war games from that perspective. You know, in most war games, you'll see strategic. Now, I tend to think of strategic as being what you do in your meta and what you do in your deployment phase. And then tactical is as you play it all out, because like no plan survives first contact with the enemy. But I don't often see the operational side, and the operational side is the logistics and the like. So, it's been something I've been toying with even myself recently. I've been trying to formulate in my own mind. I've got this great big massive black sketch pad, like an A3 hardback sketch pad, because everybody knows if you spend money on getting something big, beautiful, and hardback, your ideas will be exponentially better.
You see, I imagine that we would just go out to Studio One of these days, Warren, and just, you know, the way you see some of the conspiracy theorists, stuff all over the walls, red yarn from point to point to point.
Dude, if you could get past all the tin foil, you will find
surely you just wrap that on the roof.
But I've been thinking about this from game design perspective. You know, it's how do we take a war game and actually take it into a trinity where you would have the operational, the logistical side in there.
Oriskany, a couple of years ago now, did a whole article series on the different gaming. So we can link that down below, and that will give you a couple of pointers and some ideas as well. So.
Yeah, Jim talked about the different levels of wargaming. But what I'm wondering is, I want to keep it, let's say, do you know what? Let's keep it at 28 mil, because I think it's by far the most challenging in which to.
So you want to try and apply those kind of things to 28 mil?
I want to take the Trinity and see, right? So we know that the strategic can be applied to a 28 mil game, because that's what you do in your meta. That's what you do in your deployment. Yeah. That's what you do whenever you're making the decision as to what objectives you're going to try and secure. Okay. We know that it can do the tactical, because the tactical is your gameplay as you progress and do whatever it is you're doing. But how do we bring the operational to bear?
Count rounds.
Count rounds. Yeah. Is there anything more?
What's a count round? What do you mean by that?
I mean, you've got 5 rounds of firing in your game.
If
you fire off all 5 of those, unlucky, son, you've got no more.
You don't mean game rounds. You mean actual count ammunition.
Yeah, you can do that for like vehicles and specialist weapons.
No, you do it for everything.
Oh, I do it vehicles and specialist weapons.
No, you have to do it for everything, or you're not having to worry about logistics. Because the minute you go, I'm not going to worry about 90% of the table, because 90% of your table will not be specialist or heavy.
He's absolutely right.
At that point, there's no logistics there at all.
Although I have seen it done in World War II games where you can get like a late war Tiger, and it's cheaper points, but it's got low fuel, so you have to roll to see when the fuel runs out.
I mean, there are things but it will come down to having to manage those things.
And material.
Simply because you're playing in 28 mil. Yes. It's easier to bring the logistics into smaller scales because you're at a higher level. So, I mean, there are certain games where there are certain things you physically wouldn't be able to do. So, ancients, bar arrows.
Food.
But once the fighting starts,
I suppose,
you're not going to have that. So, if it's not a missile weapon that you're going to lose, it's not going to affect your game.
Morale is not really a resource.
But if you're saying you have low food, that's going to affect your morale.
But why do you have low food?
Well, you would get them at, say, a cheaper points cost.
In an ancient,
you would take a morale hit.
Are we talking about ancient battles? Because the battle's over in a few hours.
Yeah.
I'm thinking World War II.
Yes,
is where my head's at.
We recently discussed, what was it? Was it Stamford Bridge, or where they then had a tea break in the middle of it or something when they fought all day?
And weirdly, in that they almost did run out of arrows. So the French, I'm using the word French wrong there, but the French side fired off most of their arrows first thing and were completely ineffective, and then retired because they had so few shots left, and then came back for another volley later on that caused the sort of disruption and damage. Yeah. But you have to be able to, for supplying logistics to come in, you have to work something like that into it, and you really are limited solely to ammunition. I can't think of or ammunition or fuel if you're playing a later game.
Well, let's talk about this then. So ammunition is an obvious one. Well, it's not an obvious one. Ammunition is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuel.
I like the idea of having, you almost do a roll potentially at the start of the game to see what ammunition each unit potentially has. Okay, so there's a little bit of randomness to that. Fuel for sure. And what I would like would be cool to explore game mechanics where you've got this risk reward or sacrifice reward type of option where you can maybe pull in halfway through the game, like a restock potentially, if you can keep the lines open.
I mean, some things will come down to what you're playing and where you're playing it. For example, well, on the ammunition front, if you were to do something like Isandwana, which the British got ruffle stomped by the Zulus, and that happened because they couldn't maintain their firing because the lines from their ammunition to the actual firing line was very extended. So somebody literally had to go all the way back to the camp, get ammo, and then come all the way back out to the guys actually doing it and distribute it. So you have that management now in a 28mm game. You're not going to be playing all of Isandwana. But if you've got 2 or 3 people who literally are supplying and have to go back and forward. Likewise, if you're not worried about squad consistency, if you're not going to go every squad is 10 man and they can't mingle, if you can go, right, oh my God, that side's going, I can't pull the whole unit away, but if I take 3 guys out of there and 2 guys out of there and move them over to here to join that squad that's been hammered. So now you've weakened one part of the line with manpower because that is the only other in 28mm.
So
manpower is the only other thing that you could use.
Another option also is runners for passing messages and things like that. Now I know that there are some games that actually have runners in them. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that I've heard of a couple of games that have runner mechanics directly in
a few of the
there.
Napoleonic
You
ones.
could throw in a unit reinforcement mechanic to it, where you can reinforce, say, 10 guys in a game, just as a raw number, but it can be any 10 guys from your units. So let's say you start getting a unit that's nearly wiped and it's just your line infantry. You then have the tactical choice of, do I let that line infantry die in case some of my elite guys begin to die and I need to reinforce them?
But is this resource, I guess, men or resources? But it doesn't feel like resource management as in trying to bring stuff from the back lines.
Bringing men from the back lines?
Drops, resource drops.
Yep.
So like your drop pods or your parachuted stuff in. What movie was it, Jerry? I have a feeling it was A Bridge
You've
Too
watched
Far.
it recently, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a movie I watched recently where I think they were low on ammo or something like that there.
Low on ammo.
There was a drop. And they were looking at the drop, but it was out in the middle of a field.
Was that not Band of Brothers?
No. I'm pretty sure it was A Bridge Too Far.
It's A Bridge Too Far because of what falls out whenever they finally shoot the guy in the back.
That's it. Because one fella plucked up the cards and said, "Oh bollocks! There'll be food in that.
We'll be dead anyway if I don't go."
And he runs and he grabs it, and he grabs the canister and
I think I remember what's in this.
He gets gunned down and then he falls and the canister opens and I think it's just berries.
It's filled with red berries.
Filled with para berries. Yeah.
What about you, Benjamino? Considering you more than any of us are a fan of Eurocentric board games, which are about supplying moving stuff. Because I'm approaching this very much from a toy soldiers on the battlefield.
Euro Trucker, the board game.
Yeah, but is there any mechanics or game systems that you've come across?
Yeah,
that
is there
would
any
lend
Euro
themselves?
things that we could bring into our war games, Ben?
Well, I think one of the things that I think we see a lot with some of the slightly more historical and deeper sort of games that are less focused around the idea of the warfare kind of things, but more around the political side, is that you have that element where you have to try and vie for resources with the other players around the table. And so there's almost like a betting mechanic going on there as well. So if you took something like that, for especially games like Churchill, for example, and did something around that, and then you mixed it in with something a little bit akin to what they do with the Song of Ice and Fire, with the kind of sideboard that you have there and that political aspect to it, you could maybe sort of feed some elements into that one as well. I think one of the key things, as you say, is trying to sort of work it around the idea of sort of the resources that you have at hand in the battle itself, because a lot of the kind of Euro games that exist in board game form focus very much on the sort of, here is a front that it's moving forward. And so I think at that level, you're starting to look at a lot of different aspects that would affect the front line of your force as a whole going forward. But when you look towards, as you say, the 28mm sort of level of gaming, where you've got sort of effectively squads of men fighting each other. That's when it comes down to sort of ammo and that kind of thing. One thing I was actually going to say is that Justin raised the point of the idea of sort of morale and that kind of aspect in gameplay, and using that as but tweaking it slightly to potentially say that the resource is something to do maybe with sort of like an element of fatigue, like kind of getting Saga, because obviously one of the things you could do before the battle begins, and I've seen this done in some games, is that you roll to see the condition of the army when it arrives. So you do a couple of different rolls on tables before you begin. And I think I've seen it done with ancient battles and some Napoleonic stuff, and you see like, did X skirmish go well? In which case this happens. Did this happen? Blah, blah, blah. So when the forces come to the table, you can throw that extra little bit of a resource into there of having that maybe these units are slightly more fatigued than the others because they had to fight that front vanguard attack against the enemy when they ambushed you from the forest or something. And so you then have to decide in the game, do you then use those people who potentially are fatigued and then have some of those lower resources as well? So they might have spent a lot of ammo, they might have had battered armor and that kind of thing, and you work that into the mix. So you can try to tell a little bit of a story with that rather than just being the numbers, as it were.
That's interesting because that allows you to go a little bit deeper into your scenario setup. Where if you were able to have a table or a couple of tables that you roll against each army, where it almost tells the story of the journey
to arrive there.
Because
that could be cool.
You think about it, we have seen that with King Harold's army. King Harold had to march him all the way up north, fight. It was Stamford Bridge, wasn't it? And then he had to march the whole thing. Well, part of the whole thing south then to fight at Hastings, and that's got to have taken an effect in some capacity.
Another interesting one that I came up because I was watching the recent historical drama. I think it's The King on Netflix.
What do you think of it? I haven't watched it yet.
So boring.
I think it's good. Obviously, Agincourt isn't played out exactly as it would have happened. But one of the things I wanted to bring out in that is that was a battle that was fought by the English, who were having to go at pace through France because they just landed. They need to make their way forward and do as much damage as possible before the French retaliated and attacked them back.
Does it get good towards the end then? The movie itself? Because I bailed on it about 45 to an hour into it, and I was like, this is grim. The whole thing's dark and slow moving.
I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit of a different take on it than you might have normally seen in the Shakespearean style. And because it went a little bit more into like the history side of things, but it was still a little bit more on that dramatic edge as well.
Yeah, but it wasn't the history side that it bothered me. It was just the filmatic side. It was so dull and dark.
But it is very grim and horrible. But that was so. One of the things I was going to bring up is that they had those issues because that was the historical army that had to march through enemy territory and then try and fight a battle on terrain that was not favorable to them, well, to begin with anyway, until they worked out the ways to take down the French. But that was the thing where they had to consider how they're going to use their resources on the table. So these kind of ideas of drawing things and putting things together through a table to decide how things happened before you arrived can really put a lot more emphasis on the sort of the list building side of things.
Yep.
Because when you come to the game, you can't just go, I'm just going to take all the coolest stuff that I can, which is like then makes you a really small elite force, because then what if all your guys get really battered on the way to the battle, and suddenly you now got to work with a lot less men and that kind of thing, or like broken down vehicles and that kind of thing. So,
I like the concepts of managing resources when you've arrived at the battle, i.e., are your men in good condition, or are they shaken, or are they injured? Do they have ammo and stuff like this? Because you can play the same, like me and you could play games after games after games, and we don't have to build new armies or buy new units to have very different games, even though we know usually Lloyd does this strategy and usually Jerry does that strategy, but now that we've rolled on these tables, that strategy is not going to work for him. I think it's a nice way of mixing up a game.
Do you know what?
I was going to say, one of the other interesting things you could do is you could take some elements from games that already exist, like Malifaux, and obviously one of the newer games coming out, Crisis Protocol, where you have a reserve of things you bring to fight a game at the table, but you don't know how much of that you're going to use and that kind of thing, because that kind of mitigates a little bit of the, all my guys have now just got 5 fatigue or whatever. So you can kind of get around that and try and do something a little bit different with the content. So
because here's an idea.
I always like the resource management in Infinity, for example.
Yeah.
Well, you see, here's an idea. Could we take something like, say, you remember the old Dawn of War?
Yes.
That had control points that generated you resource?
Yes.
Have those on the tabletop generate new resources each turn, and at the beginning of each turn, you will be able to buy new units to drop into a base.
Justin, do you know something, mate?
That could be fun.
I am flabbergasted by this stage of our industry in wargaming that we don't have buildings that generate.
You see, I did see one company
because
brought that kind of thing to Kickstarter,
because
but it slows the game down a lot.
That's what I was going to say. The games don't last long enough. In Dawn of War, when you play it, like I've played Dawn of War games that
There's
last
an immediacy to it.
Yeah, they lasted 2 hours, and you're playing at such a rapid pace that if you wanted to replicate that on the tabletop, you'd be playing for like 10 hours to replicate the same amount of action that happens.
Jerry goes, "Oh, I like the sound of that."
10
hours of wargaming.
I don't know.
No problem.
I think if we could engineer and bodge the rules to do it right, I think we could take something like Dawn of War and re-engineer it to be a tabletop game.
Well, I tell you what, right? Right now at this moment, people think you are here with us. But the reality is that right now at this moment, you're lying comatose on a beach.
No. I'm probably just heading to the airport.
No, don't break the illusion for me. I can see you lying on a beach.
All right.
Okay. Sunning yourself entirely.
That is an image that nobody needs on a Saturday morning. You're welcome.
And I see a little Spanish gardener going around clipping all the bushes, right, and looking over your direction and going, maybe. Right. Oh, you had mentioned Crisis Protocol. Okay. In this week's news, Crisis Protocol releases this weekend. Now, this game is looking like a stonker. It's a game. I don't know if you've considered it, if it's in the rules. I'll have to defer to Jerry, my expert on this one. I think it's a game that would work well with a drafting mechanic.
Oh, yes.
What do you think, Ben?
You could potentially work that kind of thing into it. I like the idea of once you've got a larger heroes, you could then take your selection and then go, I'm going to take these down to a certain number of them, and then from there you kind of build things together and change things around before you play your games.
I just like the idea of you build up all your heroes, because you're only going to have one Spider-Man.
My name is Peter Parker. In my universe, it's 1933, and I'm a private eye. I like to drink egg creams, and I like to fight Nazis. A lot. Sometimes I let matches burn down to my fingertips just to feel something, anything.
Yes.
Right? So I like the idea of your heroes are out, and then I pick a hero, and then you pick a hero.
I'm trying to remember the order they go in, because what you're supposed to do is you build a roster, and then you also build a set of cards to go with them.
The scenario cards.
And then there's 2 threats are put on the board.
Yeah.
And whoever's won the turn or won the roll for picking essentially goes, that threat is the primary threat, and that's what you build your force to, so that all the cards have points values on them.
Yeah.
You could kind of switch it up and kind of tinker with the game mechanics and have it so that you have the scenario set out first, as you say, with the threat, and then you have that group of heroes, because potentially not everyone's going to have bought themselves.
I just think if a draft mechanic could work for that game, you have a superb organized play. System
there's no reason.
They're doing some stuff in that vein.
Yeah, there's no reason why the heroes can't be drafted. I can't remember how closely the cards are tied to things. I don't think they're that tight. Yeah, so potentially
there's no factions in it.
Well, no, I'm not worried about the faction side, but there's separate like ability cards and stuff that you get.
There are certain cards that are tied to affiliations, and only certain cards with particular characters, I believe. Like there's some that rely on like mega punches or using like shield toss and that. There's like one card which has Iron Man bouncing the beam off Captain America's shield and that kind of thing. So you'd have to work out how that was going to work.
Yeah, well, the alternative is, if your opponent gets Captain America and Iron Man at that point, then when you hit the card. No, I was going to say when you hit the card side, if your opponent gets in quickly enough and takes that as his first,
they could take it off
to deny you getting it. Yes. So
that drops another layer of tactics to it.
There's no reason why you can't, because as I think you have to hit 3. Once you've got 3 of the same people, it counts as a force for affiliation, regardless of what the rest of your group is. So you're not even limited going, well, I want to use the Avenger card. You only need 3 Avengers in there, and the rest could be the Hulk, Red Skull, Mordok and Zemo. You know, it doesn't matter who the other ones are.
Yeah.
If you want to hit the keywords.
They're doing some other stuff down the road in terms of game styles, because one of the ways that you play the game is obviously the two teams versus each other, but they're going to be doing like cooperative ones where you go up against one big bad guy and that kind of thing. And you can even work in draft mechanics to that, where you have whoever's going to be playing the big bad, be it, you know, someone like Thanos or something, being like, okay, so you get to pick a hero and then I get to ban a hero that you don't get to take or something. So you can try and mix that in for a little bit more of
denial. That could be. I just look at the game and I just see so much potential for it in an organized play environment.
The thing that has me really excited is to see how far some people are going to go with their gaming tables, because of the way the movement mechanics are built into this game.
This game,
you can build dense tables
beautifully on dense tables, and it works beautifully multi-layered. So it does. So I am also very much looking forward to that. Anyway, we've unboxed the game,
yes,
and we have a rules preview as well.
Yep.
That you can have a look over. And Jerry, you've been painting away at the core set, so using some inks.
Yeah, I've been slapping inks on everything.
The end result has been beautiful. So we'll try and see if we can get some of that up. I know we talked about it on last weekend's Weekender. So, XLBS, sorry. So if you check out the XLBS from last weekend, we cover that. On the topic of superheroes, Batman 3rd Edition, we've been getting some really beautiful previews.
Yeah, so there's 3 different links for us to look at here. Guys are not sending out previews, sort of teasing people about what's happening with the 3rd edition of the game. The first one that we got that came out towards the end of last week that we unfortunately didn't get in time to talk about in the Weekender was a look at the new Batman model, which was themed after the idea of Todd McFarlane's Batman from issue 423. Which I researched and stuff. So that's the reason why the cape looks like it does, people. Don't panic. He hasn't got lost in a bedsheet. This is just done in the style of Spawn, as you might imagine, because obviously Top McCartney.
It's gorgeous. What a beautiful miniature.
Yeah, and we got to look at
that's probably one of the best representations of Batman I think I've ever seen. I'm not familiar with the comic book that came from. So whenever I saw that model, that was the first time I had seen Batman represented in that style.
The actual cover of the comic has him. He's sort of the reason the cloak is as it is because he's sort of shielding a woman inside it from sort of like, because he's just rescued her basically and her children from the evil clutches of villains and goons and stuff. And so that's sort of missing from this sculpt. But if you look at it from the back and stuff, you can see that he's got one arm raised up, and so that's why the cloak's flowing up into the air with him as well, which is kind of cool. So yeah, it's a very, very dynamic sculpt anyway, and very different from a lot of the ones we've seen before. So
I think that's
lovely
quite
work.
Extraordinary.
Lovely work.
Yeah. And then we have Cruz as well.
This led us. I am the knight. Yeah, so this led us on to looking at some. Well, so the second link shows off. We got a look at Batman in the background. We also got Commissioner Gordon next to the Bat Signal and some of Gotham PD and things that you'll be running in the game. Because one of the things they've been showing off is that as well as showing off the new Cruz, they've been showing off some of the older models, because the stuff from 2nd edition. All the models themselves will work perfectly fine with the 3rd edition. You just have to go and get the new cards, I believe, but I'm not quite sure how that's going to work just yet. But yeah, so all the old models will work with all the new ones, and as you can see, they're all looking very nice and dynamic as well.
I'm loving Danny DeVito.
Yeah, and they've talked about one of the really interesting things that, in the game as a whole when it came to Cruz is that one of the big focuses is going to be back on the idea of the boss being the person in control. So like the idea of Batman being the center of attention, Joker being the center of attention.
Yeah.
But they've also done something which plays around with the idea of activations, because every character gets to do their activations in a turn, but then you also get to throw in some sort of wild activations into the mix. So say, for example, Batman's getting, laden down with thugs, opponent is, beating him to the ground. You can then spend a whole bunch of activations on maybe one of the Gotham PD police officers, and they run in and get in a couple of extra activations and take out some of the goons and stuff and help Batman. So they're really trying to throw in a little bit more of that heroic narrative to the game, which I think is really cool. And it's a big step up from what they've done in 2nd edition, which I thought was really
nice.
And the 3rd link shows off the newest miniature that we got to see this week, which is a remake of Harley Quinn. Who is positioned up on her big piece of training, as you can see there. She comes with an optional head as well, so you've got the look of her
so fun.
You can see in the painted version, and also the version with the mask on, which is a little bit more akin to people who may have watched the animated series and seen the older versions of Harley Quinn in the comic books as well. So yeah, another really cool, fun miniature that they've done for Harley Quinn and the bad guy side of things. And Joker shouldn't be too far away.
I think I'd keep her with the wee motley on because it looks class.
Yeah.
That's the wee tiny mask.
No, it's the hat.
Oh, the hat.
Hat with bells.
I don't like it. I don't know. I like it with the hair without the motley cap on.
Let's go back up. Is there one with it on?
Just them.
No. It's just it shows you. So there's her with.
Oh
the
yes,
face,
in the
and then
corner
on
in the
side you
grey.
can see it.
The optional head's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it because that's where she came from.
That's just a great model. That is just a stunningly good model.
Be fun to paint as well.
Yeah,
Especially that fun sign.
Okay.
You want to have fun painting fun.
I've got two Harlequins already. I don't know if I need the third.
Next up, we are moving into Black Seas. The Spanish and the US fleets have made an appearance, Ben.
Yeah, so pre-orders went up this week for 2 new big fleet sets. So you can pick up the Spanish, who are going to be throwing themselves into the ring and they're fighting around Europe and, of course, around the Caribbean and that kind of thing as well during the 1700s and the 1800s. And you've also got the US fleet, who, of course, will be going out to do battle with the British and all sorts of other nefarious villains that are trying to vie for their territory as well around the Americas. And so you've got some really nice setups for those with the big, lovely boats that they've been doing. We did post last weekend that there's been a rigging video done by Games. I'm trying to still nudge Jerry to do a rigging video, but it took 45 minutes for them to do it. So maybe
one ship, 45 minutes. One ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can see some of the ships they've got there. They've also got all the stuff that they've released to try and make it look a little bit better on as well. So you've got the nice sails that you can attach to them, and you've got the rat lines that you can put up the side, which are done in like a.
See, I don't mind doing that. The rat lines are fine. Because that's just printed on acetate, and you just stick that with glue. That's grand.
Yeah.
All of this thread, that's madness.
And then gluing seals to said thread.
Justin, I heard something interesting recently. Did you know in Jamaica that an apple pie costs you £1.50, but over in the Bahamas there, it costs you £3.50.
All right. What's that?
What's the pie rates of the Caribbean? I'm here all week, folks.
Try the fish.
My soul hurts.
Thank you to the cogs because that one came up in our Discord, and I told that one to my kids, and I'm continuing to tell it every day.
Oh, look, scenery.
Yeah, here's a cool one. They've got a scenery pack out.
Oh, scenery pack.
Yeah, so quickly before we get to that, they've done a couple of new name ships. I'm going to call them special characters. So you've got the Santissima Trinidad, which is the awesome Spanish ship, which was possibly one of the most laden down ships with guns that ever existed, and that works into all of their rules and stuff on the tabletop as well. So they have this sort of like overgunned rule.
Every little black dot there is a cannon. Justin.
Yeah, 4 gun decks, is it?
It was absolutely insane, that ship. Not to be confused with another ship of exactly the same name in the Spanish Navy from slightly earlier in the period. But yeah, that's one you can go and research yourself. Yeah. You've also got the HMS Royal Sovereign there as well, which took part in the Battle of Trafalgar and was pretty awesome learning about the history of this ship. So this ship was stuck in a battle against another Spanish ship and had most of its sails ripped to pieces and that kind of thing. It then lashed itself to another ship and was towed through the battle, continuing to fire its cannons from the lower decks as water was coming in, so it could still take part in the fighting. And only when it was basically uninhabitable did they leave the ship and jump onto another one. So this is a pretty awesome ship that you want to get to see.
That is a piece of awesomeness right there.
There was a really cool documentary I watched where they were actually unearthing a Spanish ship. I think it was in Canada. But this ship had actually went down because the designers had actually put the lowest gun deck too low and close to the waterline.
Was that the one where the ship at the end sailed out through the cave and then the cave kind of collapsed?
No, this was a documentary.
Oh, you tell me the Goonies is not a documentary? Because we'll have words.
No, it was actually really cool because they were actually doing the archaeology on it and figuring out where did this ship come from. And one of the cool things about the Spanish ships was they actually grew tree limbs to actually match the section of ship that it was going into. So they weren't actually having to cut and shape the piece to actually be joined it together to go into like the front prow where it comes up in a V.
Yes.
They would just grow a limb on a tree and then use that limb from the tree to actually shape down into it.
Yes.
That's a single component.
They'd been doing that for some thousands of years, if I remember correctly, how they shape trees.
What Ben described sounds awesome. I'd love to see more movies because, like, Master and Commander is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's a good one.
With the sea battling action. If anybody knows of any other cracking movies, put it in the comments below.
Moby Dick.
Heart of the Sea,
but
actually.
Moby Dick aren't shooting other ships.
No, but they don't need to. They're shooting Dick. So
Willie.
It's no. Free Willy's a different movie altogether. Different whale.
No pirates.
Did you know
yeah.
there's been people who have been swallowed by whales and survived?
Really?
Jonah.
Well,
Jonah,
other than
yeah.
Jonah.
Other than Jonah.
Apparently, there's a guy who they were out whaling, right?
Yes.
And they were stabbing at the thing, being nasty as they were.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys fell in, and then he lost sight of him.
Right.
And then, like, I don't know, 16 hours later or something other, they caught this whale and they pulled it on and they cut it open. And out he popped. Just fell out of its stomach, still alive,
No way.
How was he able to breathe?
but all white and weird looking like the Joker from the first Batman movie.
Because of the stomach acids.
Yeah, apart from where his clothes, apparently his clothes sort of protected him, but he just sort of sat there for like hours and hours, just silent and white.
Wouldn't you sit like that if you
After
just
they
didn't
cut him
eat?
out.
Yeah, but eventually he just sort of came back to life and goes, oh, yep, I got swallowed by a whale.
I don't
Fun times.
believe this.
Apparently this is true.
What were you going to say, Ben?
We're gonna have to find out if that's
Yeah,
true.
research
No,
required. Research
It depends on the
required.
type
Fact
of
checker.
whale that swallows you. No, I think it was like something like a
One of them Balin whales.
no, because they actually have really small throats.
All right.
So if you go for one of those ones that is filter feeding and they try to swallow you, you'll get stuck in its throat and it'll die.
Oh.
And you'll die as well,
You'll die.
presumably.
A bit like squids, because squids have donut brains. So they can't swallow anything bigger than their sarcophagus.
The sarcophagus.
You
is
mean
what they put you in the
esophagus?
unit.
Esophagus, that's it. Because like there's their esophagus, and then their brain goes around their esophagus. So if they try to swallow
They'll do themselves an injury.
if they try to swallow like something
Cabbage.
like a cabbage,
Dog
it'll
gammit,
just
they get drain damage.
burst their brain. Interesting, that isn't it?
They need a stretchy nose like you, Justin.
What?
So it's
What's
like
wrong with my nose?
Sorry, Ben, we're getting sidetracked, man. Right.
I was going to say, as well as the bigger ships, you've also got they're going to bring out a gunboat pack. So this is going to be a set of smaller ships. They were just sort of effectively little floating ships with one sail that had a big gun attached to it. And while they could be, I am reliably informed by Warlord, blown out of the water very easily, they also were very quick and nimble, so they could be an interesting thing to throw into your fleet, especially since their guns would be leveled around the sort of waterline. So they'd be pretty deadly against some of the bigger ships, sort of punch holes in the side. And then, of course, you've got the big scenery pack there as well. So it includes one of the pieces that was available, I believe, as a pre-order piece back when the book first came out. But they've also got a whole bunch of extra pieces in there as well. So you can set up some island landscapes and that kind of thing.
I like the fortifications.
Oh, yeah, the fortifications are very cool. It allows you to build some with that, which I think is really good. And, of course, you've got the lighthouse there, too.
It's a Martello Tower.
Yep.
Very
So
cool.
it is. Napoleonic era tower. Right. Next up, this next bit of news is mega exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. I have been really, really looking forward to this. And I tell you that when I saw the pictures of it, it did not disappoint. So Conquest, it's just an incredible looking fantasy mass battle game. Is now that we're now seeing the fourth faction.
The Nords.
The Nords. What do you see these?
You've got your
Yeah.
Jarl. And if anybody's interested, I actually did sit down with Leo and Konstantinos to actually have a good chat about the background for these guys as well.
Well, let's
what-
get it
what-
linked in.
Yeah.
because
But you've got your Jarl, and then you've got some of your other heroes. So you've
Check
got
this out, the
Blooded. Oh, the details on that are just fabulous.
But wait, it gets better, man. It gets better.
The Blooded has a massive neck beard.
Yes.
He's
He
a nerd.
does.
He's one of us. He is one of us.
Yeah.
The Raiders.
Yeah,
Oh,
looking
just look at
really
that.
good.
I am loving this. Now, this Conquest stuff is slightly bigger than normal. So this is kind of like your normal guy in Conquest is about the size of a Stormcast Eternal. If you're trying to get an indication of the scale of these guys.
It's around 32-ish.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're
I'd say.
very hefty, bulky models in that sense.
Stalkers are looking really cool and wild.
I think
These are my favourites from the range. I really like.
okay.
Stalkers for you.
No,
And
wait,
then
check.
okay.
Yeah, check this out.
Mountain
The
Jotnar.
Jotnar. Oh,
Now is it Jotnar or Jotnar?
Jotnar.
Jotnar, but I like Jotnar. Jotnar. Oh. I love it the way he's just walking around with a tree.
I love how human he looks. You know the way you get some giants made, they just do not look human anymore.
Yes, non-human giants. Yes.
Those are the ones.
Look, I can see people all sorts of fantasy
Oh,
games.
God, yeah.
Oh
picking
yes,
this
definitely.
Up. Yeah, it's just a beautiful, wonderful model. Absolutely love it.
It's nice to see them coming out with them as well, because there was a slight delay with the Weg Home.
Weg Home.
Yeah.
Weg Home.
Yeah. And if anybody's wondering,
but they've decided not to delay that.
The base of this is the same size of base that the Abomination comes on. So this is a hefty miniature.
Oh, it's a big mini.
That's massive.
Is it? Do we know what size that is?
Yes, we've seen the Abomination.
Yeah,
and I've seen these in the flesh.
Yeah, but nobody else has that point of reference. So telling people that this is the same size, it's like that. It's like the old TV one where they go, if you're watching in black and white, then they're coming from right to left.
Would it be something similar to that big Eldar walker then behind us, behind you guys?
Slightly shorter than that.
Yeah,
a bit shorter than that thing, just over Justin's shoulder.
Yeah, just over Justin's shoulder. Right. What else? Is there any other?
No, he's the last.
I think he's the last. But
yeah. So
exciting times.
Absolutely. So if you've been on the fence or having a look at Conquest, that is now the fourth of the factions.
Yep. And their army builder will be up and functional.
This is a big milestone that we've been waiting on as well, because we're looking at doing a kind of like a Tale of Gamers on this one. So we've just been waiting for the factions to all come together. So
Dibs on the dragon.
Get stuff.
That's all I'm saying.
Stuck in.
I thought you were digs on the. Right. Yeah,
no, I'm doing the 100 years.
100 Kingdoms.
100 Kingdoms.
100 Kingdoms.
Yeah. So the factions, for anyone who hasn't heard of them before, you have the 100 Kingdoms. That's your human faction. You've then got the Spires, who are sort of your biomancer elves.
Yep.
You got the Dwagam, who are the dwarves who killed the dwarves and the dragons. And then you have the Nords, who have actually suffered Ragnarok.
Yeah. So cool stuff all
yes.
around. We will divvy it up between us and get stuck into that. And then there was another massive new release. So the Sisters of Battle go on pre-order this weekend. And that was interesting.
Yeah, but then it was this box.
Yeah. Which is good, and there's a load of stuff in it, and this is going to sell out. I have no doubt that, that this is going to be a difficult box to get a hold of after this weekend. However, it was what they dropped after that. Now, Ben, can you take us through this? Because I will say I've been kind of on the fence a little bit with the Sisters of Battle, but I was absolutely drooling over a lot of these.
So yeah, towards the end of this week, they also showed off coming after the army set, as Warren was saying there. And so there was a little bit of a leak, and so Games Workshop combated this like an Imperial Guardsman flaming Nurglings and threw out all their own pictures of everything that's coming as well. And so we got to look at some of the cool stuff, including the multi-part plastic kit that will make up the battle themselves. So there's going to be a whole bunch of new options presented within that set itself. So you're going to have loads of head options, loads of weapon options, and all that kind of thing. A couple of new poses and that kind of stuff that you can mix around using some of the heads and the weapons and stuff to try and break up some of the similarity in the bodies and stuff. This then allows you to build a couple of extra bits and pieces. So as well as this allowing you to build your sort of standard Battle Sister squad, you can also use this to make your Dominions, who are your kind of like vehicle killers and special weapon units, and also your Celestians, who I believe are the bodyguards that protect things like your Canoness and that thing. And as you can see, they've got a whole bunch of really cool looking heavy weapons and stuff in there. I really like the head for the Battle Sister that's completely shaven. I think that looks absolutely badass. It looks a little bit like a Sister Repentia has actually managed to repent and come back to fight with the rest of her Battle Sisters, which I thought was very, very cool. And then this led on to showing off some of the other stuff that they've been working on in the character format. So one of the big things for the army set when it came out originally was that people were a little bit on the fence about the Canoness, but they've come back with a new version of the Canoness that you see there with a whole bunch of different options for her, so you can build her in different ways if you like. My favorite one in particular is the one with the helmet on, and we've got the white visor there. I think that's very cool indeed. And obviously you've got a whole bunch of weapons going on there too, which is really then beyond that, we've got some other stuff. So we've got a couple of different characters being thrown into the mix as well. So these are all massive updates on stuff that had already existed in the Adeptus Sororitas line. So you've got the Dialogus.
Yes, the Dialogus.
Dialogus. That's how you say her name. That's much easier.
It's not often I can pronounce something.
Who looks very, very cool indeed. Her scriptures as things are, people are fighting in battle. Looks like your stereotypical sort of warrior nun that you might have seen from Wartime, Sisters of Sigmar. Then you've got the Hospitalier, who is the medic of the group. Yep. So as you can see, she's tending to one of the fallen sisters there. And then finally, you've got the Imagifier, who is the one who's going to be carrying around that lovely icon there you can see of one of the
that.
saints, bringing it into battle.
Yeah.
Grimulum.
I'd have to say I'm not too convinced about the other two, but this one, this is
that,
cool.
isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like.
The other one, go up to. Is she like printing stuff out as she walks? What's this thing?
No, it's
Oh, it's
like
just
a-
a little
it's a scroll.
waste lectern thing that she's walking about with.
It's like a Xerox.
It's like a ticket vendor on a bus.
Yeah.
Thanks for spoiling that one for me, Lloyd. I will now not be able to unsee that. Tickets, please.
just chuck
This-
that bit away.
This then leads us to the model that I'm sure will do wholeheartedly, and that is another one
Sorry, you got cut out. The model that will what, Ben?
will divide people wholeheartedly, and that is Junith Urutia, who is one of the name characters, floating around on her, I'm just going to call it a battle pulpit,
Yes.
because that's what it definitely is. So this is a floating pulpit armed with a whole bunch of heavy flames underneath it that looks either crazy or mad. Or
I'm
stupid,
sorry.
however you want to
I've
take
got
it.
to say it. I love this model.
You know what it reminds me on?
It's a battle
Logan
pulpit.
Grimnar when he got his little sky skip.
Nope.
We got
Reminds
Sned.
me on that.
No. That Logan Grimnar thing was weird. This is epic.
I don't like it. It's Marmite.
Why have the Eagles
No, I
got?
love it.
Why have the Eagles both got eyes?
Yeah, fair point.
Why have they both got eyes?
Yeah. One of the Imperial Eagles doesn't have an eye on it.
Yeah, it's
Is
meant to
that
be.
for a reason?
Yeah, it's for the psychers. Each part of the Imperial Eagle represents something. So when you look at it, even the feet, one foot has claws,
This sounds like
and
I
one
tell
doesn't.
you what, Jerry, whenever you buy that model and you're building that
well-
up for yourself, I'll give you a little bit of green stuff and you can just
That won't go in my
his eyes
that
out.
won't go in my sister's.
It sounds like a
battle
movie term to me. The Eagles have eyes.
The Eagles have
I've
eyes.
got to say, I love that.
What do you love about it?
I love it because I didn't expect it. Okay,
Like the Spanish
so
Inquisition.
whenever I saw it, I thought to myself, "What the hell is that?" And then I looked at it and I thought, "A battle pulpit." So when you start to take everything into account and just how zealoty they're pitching the Sisters of Battle as, it just suddenly I can totally see
They're totally medieval, aren't
a
they?
commander. If they had a floating battle pulpit, they would totally stand in a battle pulpit.
Do you not remember the last big name character the sisters had, which was I want to say Archconfessor Kirinov, but he essentially had a walking pope throne. That was
Oh, Karamazov.
was that who it was?
Yeah.
So he was sitting on a massive throne, walking forward on two legs, and then he had two little mini pulpits forward of him with two servitors firing guns.
Yeah, it was like a,
Can we
a
not
converted
Google this
dreadnought.
now?
Yeah, it's like a converted dreadnought chassis.
It wasn't. It was a pendant engine.
Because I can hear Ben Googling on his side.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I found Confessor Kirinov, but I can't find an engine.
What's his name then?
I've got the name Kirinov, but
It might not be Kirinov because there was a Kirinov in the.
Either way,
But yeah,
this model, I just think right. It's nice. It's tight. It's self-contained. I think it's a great piece of design in its own right. And it was the fact that it was unexpected, and it just
there he
fits.
is.
That's a converted dreadnought chassis.
Right. Well, show us, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah, there
open
you go.
this
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Oh, you
us
see,
the actual
that's
image.
cool. I'm not so sure. Wait, there's the actual miniature.
Yeah,
sitting
show us the
there.
miniature.
This?
Nobody cares about artwork.
There you go.
Jank,
There's your miniature.
jank.
Open a new tab.
Well, I think there's a
And
nicer.
there you go.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a converted dreadnought.
Well.
Oh, well, fair enough. It's still a walking throne.
Yeah, I know.
Couldn't give a tinker's jizz if it was a dreadnought or not. It's a walking throne with
Yeah.
a wee servitor firing from his pulpit.
I would love
Yeah.
to see a new version of that.
Mm.
But in the meantime, I'm very happy to have a battle pulpit. You know, it's.
I think this army's just not for me. I think this is another Marmite one for me.
I think
See, I
the
like
moment
the regular stuff. I just don't like some of the specialist stuff.
I was unconvinced by things like stained glass windows on
On
tanks
tanks,
and
yeah.
stuff, but now a battle pulpit.
It's all right.
Yes,
You can live with this. You can
Yes.
accept this.
because a
It
battle.
does look totally grimdark.
It's
so,
not
you
only
know.
that; it looks eminently functional. Do you know what I mean? What? There's nothing.
That is true. She could definitely give a lecture from that.
Yes.
She could give a sermon.
And she can see out of it.
Yep.
And I'm not joking here. I hand on heart. I'm not taking the piss here.
I just imagine her going in front of a congregation going, you didn't fill out collection plate.
Hang on one second before anybody else comments on anything. She's from Belfast. Because I can quite clearly see your da up the side.
Your da incendium. Your da's on fire.
Another side it says your da's your ma.
So I looking at it, I like it as a model. I like it as a piece of over the topness, grim dark, and it works for me. Because I can absolutely see the presence and the commandeeringness of I want that to be my top commander in my Sisters of Battle army. I only want one of them, and I want them there in the middle conducting the operation from the battle pulpit. Holy smokes. I will remove the stained glass windows off the tanks.
Yes.
Okay, I will do that. Even if it has little control panels and stuff behind it, Jerry, don't care. Stained glass windows coming off the tank.
Oh yeah, I never liked
because I would rather see the control panels, to be honest.
So, but the battle pulpit.
I wouldn't mind the stained glass window if the stained glass window was shorter.
Yes,
it's so high.
Yeah,
but I don't want this being a thing that every army has a walking throne.
Well, that's not
or
walking.
A floating throne.
No, that's.
I mean, we've had the Ozzy Osbourne one.
Yes,
that's true.
The Aussie
but
art
every
one,
commander suddenly end up sitting on a bloody chair shouting at people.
Well, that's what commanders do. That's what commanders do. I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. That model almost single-handedly took that army up to a 10 for me. The army had been hovering around an 8 or so. That took it to a 10. A battle pulpit. Holy shit. Right. Next. Ripper Snarlfangs Dead Fane warbands available.
Yeah, so this is just
goblins.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an update for Warhammer Underworld. Throwing some stuff into the mix for Age of Sigmar as well. So we've got a new warband that's going to be pre-ordered this weekend, which is Ripper's Snarlfangs. As you can see, they're based on the idea of the Goblin Wolf Riders that we all know and love.
Jerry, they're lovely. They're right back to what we love.
Yeah, and now they've been brought back into the fold here, updated on these big, new-looking wolves rather than those weird ones that we got to see.
The wolves need to be more furry.
No, these wolves are fine.
I think they're right.
Yeah, these wolves are fine.
And a lot of people have really liked these. They just want to see more of them. Hopefully, we'll be going to be seeing the goblins done a little bit more interesting style for the rest of Age of Sigmar in the future. That would be very cool indeed. And obviously, they'll have rules to include these in your games too, which is pretty good. This then leads on to another little tiny release as well. So a while back, Games Workshop did a sort of quick and easy way to get stuck into Warhammer Underworlds with a box called Dreadfane. They've now taken the 2 warbands that you would have got in Dreadfane and upgraded them to be used properly in the game of Warhammer Underworld as it is. So you can now get a little box which will contain both of those 2 forces there, each with their own leaders, and obviously they're the little push fit models that you get and stuff like that. So some extra new ways for you to get stuck into Warhammer Underworlds there, and a lot of people, as I say, really liking the look of the new goblins / grot, however you want to call them.
Yes, I like the goblins. I'm a big fan. Next up, an independent White Dragon, Courage in Contact previews. This is some Modern Warfare stuff. Jerry, you're going to like this.
Yeah. So go, Jerry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say they've already been pointed out to me several times. Things like, why is Jerry carrying things under his arms? Why is
So Jerry has posed for White Dragon miniatures.
I get a percentage of everything they sell.
I love them.
So this is some of the new stuff they're going to be support the stuff that we actually had a look at last weekend as part of XLBS, looking at some of the stuff from the community spotlight and things. We actually saw some people.
I knew that's I thought I'd recognize them.
Yeah, so we saw some people painting up the troops and stuff that had already exist from Dragon, and now they've been working on some of the heavier weapons. So you've got a 12.7mm Deshikase gun, which I think is very cool there, that you can sort of see as one of those things that may have been mounted on the back of a truck or something.
Can we just get you to do the rest of the show in that accent? No.
Can you say it again?
And you've also got a 40mm grenade launcher as well, which is a very awesome option for the guys that are going to be playing the British too. They also squeezed out a couple of interesting previews for the British snipers that are coming out as well very soon.
Yeah, the grenade launcher.
Very cool.
Oh, right, this isn't the snipers because I was sitting looking. I don't want to be sniped by that.
No, that's a machine gun grenade launcher.
Look at the quality of those casts.
Yeah,
they're
they're
very
beautiful.
good. They're very good indeed. The guys at White Dragon have actually done, kind of made a name for themselves doing a lot smaller scale stuff. They did things in 15 mil as well, which was amazing for some of their kind of like sci-fi ranges. But they then moved to doing some of these
Shattered
modern.
Void, I think is
Shattered
theirs,
Void,
isn't it? Yeah.
Shattered Void was the ship-based one, and then they also had like one based on the ground as well, which was really cool. But the thing that I really wanted to point out about these is that I really like the proportions of them because they're not quite true to sort of historical scale. They're a little bit more sort of heroic looking, which I think is really cool. So if you're going to be sort of brought into historical wargaming, modern wargaming from games like Call of Duty and that kind of thing, these guys can provide you like a really interesting sort of take on that, which I think is really good. And I think they're going to paint up wonderfully, and they do, as we saw.
Because the paint job I'd seen on the Insurgents in the XLBS for the Golden Button was just incredible. Can I also say a quick congratulations to the founder of White Dragon, because they have now made the important decision of actually going full time into White Dragon.
Good.
So
Awesome.
congratulations to you. I wish you all the best. We all do. We want to see you be a success. And I really am looking forward to at some point seeing your Moderns range in the flesh, because I think you've done a beautiful job on it.
Yeah.
Right. We have some Infinity releases for December. It's not just Defiance.
Yeah. So rather than, obviously Defiance is the big thing at the moment for Corvus Belli, but that hasn't stopped them releasing for Infinity as well. So we've got a whole bunch of new releases for a bunch of the different factions to throw into your games of regular Infinity. Leading with the Hulat Janissaries, which is a really awesome new model they've been working on, which I think has taken a couple of cues from one, Mr. Tony Stark, with the kind of design of the helmet there, but looks very, very good indeed. Love the look of that. Anything to do with Hacky Slam has always come out really, really nicely. And this leads on to another thing that I think is really cool to be seeing for this. Now, people, bear with me. I don't know everything about the Infinity Universe thing, but I love the fact that we're seeing some more sort of alien figures coming into the mix for some of the different factions. And here we've got the Libertos Freedom Fighter with his shotgun at the ready, which I think is very cool. And they are actually a group that are fighting back against their repressors in the Pan-Oceania faction, down with Pano. I think that seems to be the rule across anything to do with Infinity.
Yeah.
And some very cool looking stuff there on the alien front, which I think is really good. This then leads on to the Mentors as well, Shasvasti, which I think is very cool. Anyone who's seen anything to do with Defiance and all the stuff they've been doing there, I think you understand how cool the Combined are and how that all comes together. He's even stepping on one of the O12 members there under his hoof, crushing it into the ground, which I thought was very cool.
Love that.
And talking about O12, we've also got a new set of models for them to use.
Wow.
That's interesting.
So you've got Team Sirius. So this is like a kill team for their sort of faction in the future. They are sent out to hunt down miscreants around the world. The worlds, I should say, because there's plenty of them. And you've got that awesome looking canine there that is linked to their master, and they go out hunting all the creatures and stuff. And then finishing things off, we've also got the Helot Militia. And these are really interesting because these are aliens that fight for Pano. And you know the guy we saw earlier with the shotgun? He's fighting back to try and kill these guys because he thinks they're traitors and all kinds of horrible things like that. So there's some really interesting narrative built into the different models.
Fishman.
Yeah.
Fishmen. Everybody loves Fishmen.
I like the fact that they're rocking the Abe Sapien
Yes.
reverse scuba gear,
Yeah.
glasses and mask filled with water so they can fish about on land. That's just really
cool.
cute.
I gotta say, that's cracking. That's how it releases.
Yeah.
You
Gee
can't be
whiz.
serious.
he did this.
What's happening?
Nothing.
Right. Okay. Final piece of news for this week. Okay. TT Combat have come out with some grimdark stuff for Sector 4. Let's get a look at it. Benno.
So this is terrain that I really wanted to highlight because it immediately brings to mind everything that I love about kind of skirmishy, narrative-y war games on the tabletop, especially things like Necromunda and Kill Team that this kind of terrain has been built for. These are big, awesome-looking set pieces that you could throw into the mix and use in all your kind of under-Hy-Vee style games, your sci-fi stuff. That immediately makes me think of really cool ways you could use it. Like, for example, imagine that big blade in the center of that turbine is spinning, and if your guys get too close to the edge and get pulled into it, they get just like decimated and torn apart and all kind of things like that.
Yeah.
You've got really cool ideas for running up to the power station and getting to the control room to protect it and all kind of things there too. Clambering along the pipes and getting into sniping positions, all that kind of things too as well. So yeah, this is a really awesome set of terrain that I think they've been working on here, really building on all the stuff they've done for the sci-fi range in total to give you really nice, dynamic, and sort of vertical game spaces to play in. I think is really good, and it's a nice alternative, obviously, to some of the plastic stuff that we've seen from other companies.
I tell you a game that would cry out for that, Jerry.
Marvel.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd would also be awesome.
It has a very Dredd feel to it. I'd quite happily use it in Marvel.
Oh, I can just see Jigsaw being pushed face first into that blade by the Punisher right there. That's where you've got your two heroes fighting over it.
You could quite happily use it in Infinity. We've just looked at Infinity models.
Yeah, Infinity as well. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Right, Kickstarters.
Yes.
Benno, who have you picked for us this week?
Cool. So we've got two I suppose you could say, littler guys in the industry, I suppose. And the first one of these is from Joek, who actually a lot of people will probably know. And this is a new one from Joek Minis, where they are creating some of the new mortals for their Odyssey range. Now, these are the Anthropos. So there's going to be 4 new characters that they've thrown into the mix here that you can use in whatever games you might fancy using. But the main thing is that they're building on the mythology that they've been creating here, using Greek stuff and things like that, and tying it into a slightly more like a spacefaring sci-fi world. It's really cool. And of course, all the stuff that the guys at Joek do are pretty fantastic. I think you'll agree as you're looking through some of these things. So yeah,
just
they've done a whole.
The Angry God is an immense money, isn't it?
Yeah. So one of the big ones they've done for this, they had a model called Hephaestus that they did a while back. They've now amped him up to 11 and turned him into that absolutely monstrous miniature that you see in the middle of the page there as well, which I believe is 250 millimeters tall in total, from the base all the way to the hammer. So if you're looking for some kind of crazy, amazing sci-fi badass to throw into your army, I'd say that's a pretty good reason to look at this Kickstarter. They've also done a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So they've got a little bit of an add-on as well. They teamed up with a sculptor called Ari Nielsen, who did Pemfredo, I'm going to say. That's how you said the word? I don't know ancient Greek. Screw Pemfredo. He's an Italian pizza man. And this is actually based on one of the fates from Greek mythology. But yeah, I really like this because there was a game a couple of years ago called, I think it was called Too Human on Xbox, and it took Nordic mythology and put it into a sci-fi setting and had it that in our world, this had existed beforehand, and then obviously Ragnarok happened and we lost all that technology. And I love the idea of someone taking something like Greek mythology in this way and having it being this massive sci-fi, a crazy space opera style thing that happens maybe within our world, but we don't really know about it and all that stuff. So yeah, some really awesome things there from
Happy days.
Say it with me, Ulysses.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
it is.
That.
You too can replay Ulysses on the tabletop.
In our next indie Kickstarter, I can see here Ben has picked Antimatter Games. What has Antimatter been up to?
So Antimatter Games are a company that have worked on 2 sort of, I guess you'd call them underground hits for quite a long time. So they have a very, very loyal fan base, and they create that's for Shadow Sea and Deep Wars. So this, as I say, Shadow Sea and Deep Wars are the 2 games that they're creating, which are sort of undersea fantasy worlds with a little bit of pulp and steampunk and all that kind of thing thrown into it. But this new campaign is taking a look at things from an STL file, sort of 3D printing angle. And so they have a whole bunch of creatures and monsters and characters and troops that they really wanted to bring into the game, but it's taking a while to do it. And so they've decided to look at this from a 3D printing angle and build up all these different files so that you can print them off at home and bring them to the tabletop yourself and use them on your games and things. They also have got a couple of the different things as part of this Kickstarter that are going to be done as physical releases as well. So don't worry if you want to try and pick up some stuff without the whole 3D printing malarkey. But as it stands, they've got loads of things here. So you've got dinosaurs, troglodytes, terrain, monsters, sharks, giants, a whole bunch of different characters for both Deep Wars and Shadow Sea, and loads of different creatures. And yeah, a really interesting looking one. And they've actually showed off some of the examples of how it comes out printed as well as part of the Kickstarter. And yeah, a really amazing array of different things that you could use in these games or in something else if you wanted to as well. Maybe, loads of different sci-fi and fantasy games out there.
It's quite eclectic, this Kickstarter, isn't it?
It really is. They've basically gone, hey, and they've just gone, yeah, we're going to offer them all.
I don't know what the hell
No.
said,
It just
but-
went, yeah.
Ben just decided to cut out right. So they just went, hey, what, Ben?
Hey,
They went. I think I said a swear word, but they.
Oh, it's already it got automatically beeped out there, man. So.
Oh, that's great. They've gone crazy, and they've. You know what?
Yeah. The machine says no.
It says no.
Lovely. Well, look, Antimatter Games, right? So, Odyssey Anthropos from Joic has about 6 days left. Uncharted Realms of the Abyss from Antimatter Games has about 14 days left. From us, there's no days left. We are now done. A massive thank you, as always, to Ben, to Jerry, to Justin, to Lloyd. Most importantly of all, guys, as always, a massive thank you to you guys for tuning in. Remember, tomorrow we have XLBS. We are going to be sitting down to go over the House Challenge, where we challenge the three houses of the Cult of Games to each come up with a historical battle and reskin it as a Star Wars Legion battle or a Star Wars battle. So it was our having a look at how we would take a historical battle and reskin it for Star Wars. We filmed the results of that a little bit earlier in the week. It'll play out tomorrow morning. So if you fancy having a look at that, because we get a chat about the challenges of creating scenarios and how you would go about it.
It's great because I got to be Craig Revel Horde.
Lloydie got to pick the winner. Lloydie got to pick the winner.
Just before we go,
Yes.
have a look at these. They're doing zombie pirates. Zombie pirates. I like zombie pirates.
And there you go. On that note, zombie pirates are. We will see you later.
Oh, that's bad.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.